Ladies and gentlemen, what you're looking at are the police officers that were responsible for the death of Elijah McClain. They are on trial. Isn't it amazing? We haven't seen these photos until a full 2 years later after they murdered, because they murdered Elijah McClain. You're seeing the cops involved for the first time. So the officers accused in the Elijah McClain's death didn't face charges for 2 full years. You know how it is when the cops are white, it takes forever to charge someone. When the cops are black, they can charge in lightning speed. Yeah. So here's a timeline of the case, and we know what happened to Elijah McClain. It was terrible what happened to him. And I'm glad these guys are on trial. I'm glad I got to see them for the first time because we sure have not seen them. They do a hell of a job protecting their own. Okay, so let's get into it. What happened to Elijah McClain is definitely a travesty of justice because he never ever should have been killed. So these are Colorado police officers accused in the 2019 death of Elijah McClain. They began their trial this week. So, there are criminal charges and they're saying more to be filed. It took them more than 2 years to do something for the death of Elijah McClain, who was just 23 years old at the time when he was aggressively killed by police officers. So, if you remember, the reason why this took so long, initially the prosecutor refused to bring charges on any of the first responders in connection with Elijah McClain following his encounter with the Colorado police. They were the city of Aurora cops, citing that he said there was a lack of evidence against them, which infuriated his family and civil rights advocates that were involved. McClain was confronted by police officers, and this happened on August 24th, 2019, after someone reported seeing a person wearing a ski mask that looked sketchy. Yeah, it's amazing how out of every group of people on the planet, we always the ones that look a certain way. We look like the suspect. We look like the criminal. We look like we look sketchy. We look like we did something. I mean, y'all get out of here with that crap. Got some damn nerve. None of you got any room to talk about criminals at all. So, anyway, when the paramedics came, they were absolutely no help to Elijah McClain at all. They gave him ketamine. And shortly after, he went into a cardiac arrest on the way to the hospital. And just a few days later, he died. So there was a body camera video that showed McClain at some point saying he couldn't breathe. And, you know, we saw so many cases around this time. You know, we had George Floyd, we had Breonna Taylor, we had so many of these cases coming up. And you know what it makes me think about? Can you imagine the thousands of men and women from our community that were murdered and there is no body cam footage of it? And we see it and we're still outraged. So, after the investigation, a Colorado grand jury in 2021 indicted the first five responders, including Aurora police officers, that are now on trial. The charges include manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. So, there were two paramedics that administered ketamine to McClain. They are expected to stand trial in November. So all five defendants that you see pled not guilty after learning of the charges in 2021. So Elijah McClain was murdered in cold blood in 2019, and they never got around to charging these officers until 2021. And they're just going on trial in 2023. Sure moves slow when it's their own people. So, anyway, after learning of the charges in 2021, McClain's parents were brought to tears. I started to cry because it's been 2 years, his mother said. Shanine McClain. It's been a long journey. Yes, it sure has. Now, if you remember, Elijah McClain went to a convenience store nearby. He was just walking to and walking home because it was close to where he lived. And the Denver police, the Aurora police, were called around 10:30 p.m. And somebody calling in, oh, some guy in a ski mask, he looks strange. Okay, did he stop and bother you? Did he come by your house? Oh, I forgot, my bad. You don't have to do those things for these people to call the police. They call over every little silly thing under the sun. So he was carrying, a plastic bag with some iced tea in it. And eventually the police confronted him. It turned into a physical struggle. And you know what the cops do. They start the confrontation because we see it on video, and then they start screaming at the person that they started the confrontation with and say, "You are resisting arrest." And they did the same thing to Elijah McClain. Early in the encounter, the officer told McClain to stop. When McClain kept walking, the two officers grabbed his arms. McClain said, "Let me go. I'm an introvert. Please respect the boundaries that I'm speaking." And of course, they didn't. And we see he is gone. He is gone. So there were a lot of things that happened. Now, on that night, it was three officers that tackled McClain down to the ground. Mm, mm, mm. And they said that his circulation was cut off, the blood flow to his brain. Mm, mm, mm. So he became unconscious after he was out of a hold, a stranglehold. Oh boy, it is just so hard, just even reflecting on this. And then Aurora fire rescue paramedics arrived. They already saw McClain on the ground, and they said he had excited delirium and decided to give him ketamine. He suffered a heart attack on the way to the hospital. 3 days later, he was declared brain dead and taken off of life support. So, no, his death is 100% their fault, and unfortunately, when something happens to one of us, we can't 100% count on the police coming and doing the right thing, the paramedics coming and doing the right thing. In fact, we can't depend on anybody coming to our aid and do the right thing in this society. You know, you can't take something negative like the police, which was created out of slavery, and turn it into anything positive today. It can't be done. So, y'all, please tell me what you think. I wish all of these guys would go to jail for the rest of their life, but we know how the courts function in America. They will ultimately find ways to let them go or cut their time short that they have to spend behind bars, because that's what they do for these kind of men. They don't do this for all men, but they certainly do it for these men right here. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.